Hey everybody, this is Geno Reynolds from The Real Opinion, here with the man behind such roles as Lex Luthor on Smallville, the voice of the Flash on the Justice League, as well as many others. Michael Rosenbaum joins me today to talk about his new film that he wrote, directed, and stars in. Michael, how you doing today?
Geno, I'm happy to be on the wand. W-A-N-D, I'm excited.
Back in the Day is the name of your new film. Can you give everyone a summary of what the film is about?
Yeah, it's pretty, I think it's pretty relatable. It's a guy who's not really sure where his life's going, and he's kind of having a little midlife crisis. And so he goes back home for a reunion, and he sort of falls in love with this town that he ran away from, and he realizes that everybody back home is content, and they've got families, and he's like, what have I missed all these years? Is this what I've been missing? It's like, what am I doing? And he's trying to figure himself out and find himself. So it's kind of a sweet story in a lot of ways, although there are a lot of hijinks and fun, and we get to vandalize an old principal's house, seeking vengeance on an old principal, and the boys getting together for one last hurrah, and everybody has that little midlife crisis, so back in the day, sort of that.
Before we talk about more of what's in the film, when and where can people check it out?
Well, you can actually download it right now. You could download it, it's one of these little indies that we did, but it's, let's see, iTunes. You can go to iTunes, and you could rent it. You could pre-order it. You could, and it's also in selected theaters. It opens this Friday. You could follow me on Twitter, which is mrosenbaum711, and support this little film and find out where it's playing. To see it in the theater is really amazing. I just went back to Indiana, where I grew up in the Midwest, and to see it with a big audience, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely a throwback, and people from the Midwest, I think, will really appreciate this movie. Got wiffle ball and barbecues and TPing your old principal's house. Good times.
Well, I got a chance to check it out early. I got a screener, and I have to say I found it pretty funny, but it also had a lot of heart behind it. Where did the concept of this story come from?
Well, a lot of the characters were loosely based on people that I grew up with. I grew up with a skunk. His name was Skunk. This is the kind of guy who shaved his head into a mohawk and spray painted it black and white in high school, and he was kind of a tough guy. But he had a heart of gold, and he just defended his friends. And he wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but he actually, just when you thought he wasn't the smartest, he kind of gave you advice that you go, wow, how am I hearing this from this guy? So he's a real guy. A lot of these guys I grew up with, but the concept really came. It was the first script that I had written years ago, and I just always loved coming back home to the Midwest, and I come twice a year for wiffle ball tournaments and to raise money for charity and give back to the community. And so it really came about years ago, and I thought about all the friends I grew up with, and I go, well, how do I incorporate all these crazy personalities in one movie? So I started out with these different characters that I grew up with, and I was like, this guy's a larger-than-life character. There's a guy named Freeman who just shows up at parties and uninvited, shows up to different people's reunions uninvited, and all these characters, I just kind of connected the dots with some stories, and really it's about the main character trying to find himself through these buddies of his, and he inadvertently does that.
Now, how close of the story of Jim Owens is to your own?
It's a great question, Geno. There's a strong parallel. I mean, to say I'm not happy is, I definitely, I do like living in L.A. I have some good friends, most of which are Midwesterners that have moved from Illinois or Indiana and come out here to do something. But, there is a parallel. I mean, I always think, man, I'm 40 years old now, and, I'm not married, I don't have kids, and I certainly would like that, and I think what my life would have been if I would have grown up back there and stayed there. And, it's one of those things you do think about. You think, you go back home and you're like, oh, that girl right there, wow, she's married, she's happy, she's got a family. And so there is that parallel where Jim, I definitely, when I go back home, I always think, I'm going to move back here one day. I'm going to move back here. And so, yeah, there's definitely a parallel. It's a lost love, the girl you left behind, the friends you kind of left behind, but you try to see. And, as you grow older, you find that, a lot of people, you don't have as much time as you used to. My friends have their families now. They have their own things going on, so they can't just get on a plane and come out here. And it's, it's tough. It's growing up. It's all about growing up.
Now, of course, you filmed this movie in Indiana, as you mentioned, and that's, of course, where you were raised. How close was the town in the story to the town that you grew up in?
I mean, really close. With the generosity of the people, we shot at the Pizza King. I used to go cut through yards, drink out of garden hoses, and go to the old Pizza King and have a Stromboli, and it's still there. And I said, I have to put this in the movie. And my old high school, I went to Castle High School in Newburgh, and we put that in the movie. And we used to cruise Green River Road. No matter where you're at in the Midwest or wherever you are, it's like, people cruise. They always have a strip where everybody goes, and you hit the mall. And, I shot at my sister's house and in different neighborhoods. And I went back home, and it was just, it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary, but I wanted to keep it authentic. Everyone said film in Los Angeles, you'll get a tax credit. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to make it, this is my first or last movie, I'm going to shoot it back home where I know. I know all these places, and I know where everything is. And it's just a sense of community that L.A. couldn't provide. And so.
Now, some pretty crazy things happened during this movie, stories, and as you mentioned, pranks, etc. I was wondering, were any of those stories true?
They were all true. I mean, they really were. A lot of people, whether you're, I don't want to turn women off to seeing this movie because there's a lot of heart and there's a nice romance, and the girl from Homeland is beautiful and sweet, and there's a nice, sweet story. But for all the boys out there, we used to, when we were kids, we used to throw farts. Called the Garvin. And in the movie, Harlan Williams, the guy from Dumb and Dumber, is like, "Hey, buddy, you guys drinking on some of Grandpa's house medicine?" He's like one of these geniuses, and he teaches his son the art of fart throwing. And so, people were like, "Really?" I'm like, "Listen, man, this movie's not for you. This movie's for the Midwest. This movie's for people." That's what I grew up on. It was my experience, and we played wiffle ball, and we did all these things growing up, and I wanted to incorporate all of them in the movie. The wiffle ball scene, there's my friend Skunk, he got so drunk that he was, the next day, no one knew where he was. They didn't know where he was, and he ended up sleeping in the bed of some neighbor's pickup truck naked. And he just woke, and there's this whole story that happens, and he doesn't know what happened. He has to figure it out. It's almost like The Hangover, that moment, and that was true. And the characters and obviously loosely based on a lot of people, but the stories, I had a buddy who went to prison for killing someone, but I didn't hang out with him. This happened years after I stopped hanging out with him, but there's a moment where we talk and say, "Oh my gosh, remember that house? So and so used to live there." And then she says, "Well, didn't he go to prison for killing someone or something?" I'm like, "Yes, he did." And it's kind of a little freaky. So I think in every small town across the country, you always have the one, you always remember him. Things didn't turn out so well for him. And, it's kind of down-to-earth, true story about just different people and what happened to them in their lives so far. And, but there are some truths to it.
Well, I'm from a small town, from about 1,000 people, so it really hit close to home with me, and I really enjoyed it. And I am glad I got the opportunity to check it out. Once again, can you remind everybody when and where they can check out the film?
Yeah, guys, I really appreciate it. It's called Back in the Day. And these movies, these studio films are made for $50 million. Well, this movie was made for pennies, and I think it just has just as many laughs. And I think the people around me you can follow me on Twitter at mrosenbaum711, and I'm always tweeting back or Facebook me. And it opens up Friday in 10 cities across country, so it's only in 10 cities, but you can download it on iTunes, Xbox, Vudu, Google Play, any of that, Amazon, and it's like $5-6 for a rental, and sit back with your boys and have a good time and check it out and support the film and spread the word.
Well, Michael Rosenbaum, I really appreciate it. It's an honor, and I want to thank you for your time.
Geno, you're the best, man. Thanks so much.
I'm Geno Reynolds from The Real Opinion with Michael Rosenbaum. Until next time.